Christina is going to talk about the grant program that they have and how we can empower all of you to do some great work in your communities. And I'm so excited for this conversation tonight. So turning it over to Christina.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brittany. It's so exciting to see you all here today. It seems like a lot of you are coming from like different parts of Canada, which is great. I'm based in Toronto, and I see some of you are in BC, in Calgary. It's really nice to see that. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you today. So I'm gonna share my slides in a second. And just so you know, I'm co-presenting today with Charlie. So maybe I'll start off with a bit of an intro and then I can pass it on to Charlie. So I'm Christina and I'm with Rising Youth and I'm with the Partnerships and Outreach team. And my work is to support partners like Meal Exchange, for instance, to be able to reach youth in different networks and kind of encourage them to apply the grants. And so this is really cool that you guys are out here on a nice, August day. It's really sunny out there. It's really beautiful. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Charlie now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlie. I go by he, him pronouns. I am joining from the University of Victoria. I've been with Meal Exchange for almost a year now as a student coordinator, as well as a student ambassador. I've been through this presentation before, so I'm really looking forward to helping coordinate with this with Christina. Thanks so much for coming.
Would you like to go, Brittany, or they already know who you are? You don't need to.
Sure, I'll introduce myself. I think some of them are new, so that's exciting. My name is Christina Muia. I am a program manager or the program manager for Meal Exchange. Really excited to have everyone here tonight and talk about how we can get you some funding to do some awesome work in your communities across the country. Yeah, I think that's about it from my end, and just looking forward to seeing, hearing from Christina and all of your great ideas about what you might want to do in your communities.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for that introduction. So now I will share my screen. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so welcome to the Rising Youth Community Service Grants. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the grants before. If you have, that's great. If you haven't, then this is the place to be. So the Rising Youth Community Service Grants are funded by the Government of Canada under the Canada Service Corps. And we are in coalition with other organizations actually who are national partners, like Apathy's Boring and Duke of Edinburgh, Boys and Girls Club. So there are different coalition partners who are working with Technique Global, not to disburse the funds, but to kind of like in the planning of the grants. But Technique Global is disbursing the funds. So I'll do another acknowledgement for Toronto. So Technique Global has offices across the country. Well, not really offices, but like, shared spaces where people actually, convene to work. But obviously we do have an office in Toronto because that's where we have most of the employees. And so I'll do one for Toronto because that's where I'm also based. So Technique Global would like to acknowledge that the land where we live, work, and rest, the traditional and ancestral territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Toronto, formerly known as Toronto, is on Treaty 13 territory. So when I think about this, like when I think about the land acknowledgement, I kind of reflect back on experiences, as a Canadian and as somebody who also came here as a first generation Canadian, and kind of like, thinking about how I can also learn about Indigenous history and how, I came to be on this land, and also the history of the people that were on this land before me as well. So I urge all of you to also reflect on that as well. So I'll pass it over to Charlie.
Yeah, so I'm coming from Victoria, so I would like to acknowledge and respect the unceded territories of the Lekwungen peoples, as well as the Songhees, the Esquimalt, and Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. I'm constantly appreciating the ocean, the air, and the forests around me, and yeah, I really appreciate the land that I'm coming from, so thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so a bit of an introduction. Maybe I'll pass it on to Brittany to introduce Meal Exchange, and then maybe Charlie could do an icebreaker.
Awesome. Well, I think you all already know, but in case not, we are a national charity focused on youth and food security across Canada. We partner with students and campus partners across the country, and we have ambassadors, including Charlie, on 30 campuses across the country right now, and campus coordinators on a handful as well. We have a number of different programs, so I would encourage you to check out our website and sign up for our newsletter to learn more. We'll be having a National Student Food Summit that we do every year annually this fall. Yeah, just looking forward to hearing from all of you tonight, but that's a little bit about Meal Exchange.
Yeah, and for the icebreaker, I was just wondering, Christina, did you want to do it over chat or over?
Yeah, maybe we could have people, put their comments in the chat or unmute themselves if they feel comfortable. Whatever works for
Perfect.
everyone in the room. Yeah, either way works.
Okay, so the icebreaker that we had, you might have heard of it before, but the apple lemon chili exercise, which is basically choose apple for something sweet, or lemon for something sour, or chili for something that has you fired up to describe your week. So if you wanted to put that in the chat, or if you feel comfortable sharing it with everyone, then please feel free. I suppose I will start. I think I have an apple, which is that it's super clear in Victoria. I know that if you're in BC, you probably know about the forest fires going on, so I hope you're staying safe. But I'm really appreciating the clear air right now, and it's actually a decent temperature, so that's my apple.
I would say I feel chilly, like spicy. Well, because it's been a very busy week, well, not fiery week, but it's just been a go-go week, but a lot of, good outcomes in terms of most of the tasks that I've been doing this week. I've had really good outcomes and results, and I'm really, excited about that. So, so definitely a fiery week for me. I'll pass it on to whoever wants to go next.
I would say I feel two things, apple and chili, probably apple. It's sweet to see everyone here. Really excited to be here with all of you, and that you were all able to make it on a beautiful sunny evening, at least in Toronto. My spicy pepper, I think it was, chili pepper, is that it's also been a very busy week for me, and I'm going on vacation next week, so preparing everything, and I've got some final papers due this week as well. So it's a spicy week, but excited to be here. Anyone else want to either drop it in the chat or be brave and unmute yourself and tell us one of the
I do have a lemon. I think, not to bring the mood down, I have a lot of friends in Halifax, and then I don't know if people saw today, there was like a pretty brutal arrest and like displacement of some houseless people, and some of my friends are incarcerated, and some of my friends were pepper sprayed. So that was kind of the vibe for my day today. But so I'm worried about them, but I'm really excited to be here and talk about food justice, and yeah.
Sorry to hear that, Isabel. We had some similar situations happen in Toronto recently, which you probably saw. Yeah, sorry about that. And it's okay to talk about these things. They're real, and they're part of social justice and food justice. So don't feel bad for bringing it up.
I can go next. And also, I just wanted to thank Isabella for telling everyone. I feel like a lot of things like this don't come out into the news, or we don't hear about them unless it's on social media. So being able to talk about it word of mouth is really big, because a lot of the time we don't hear about it and even when we do, it's kind of watered down into the way the government wants us to hear it. So I appreciate you for coming out and telling us all of that today. Something that's kind of spicy but kind of sweet also. There was a bear on my street today. And I live in the city in Thunder Bay. We're still a lot of people think we're in the middle of the nowhere, but this is a very populated area. We have highways, we have roads. This is a very suburban area. And we had police everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And there was a bear on my street. So that was pretty cool, pretty exciting. Different police enforcement, but definitely still something a little crazy.
Anyone else? Feel free to also drop it in the chat. How you're feeling, but no pressure. Okay, I think we can move it on.
All right, I'll just put in some comments in the chat, but
Oh, okay.
no problem. Anybody else want to go next? If anybody type in the chat if you don't feel comfortable, unmuting yourself, that's still okay. And we'll just kind of go through those while you're going through the workshop slides. So feel free to drop your comment in the chat. Or do you want to share Wi-Fi? Sorry.
I think my Wi-Fi is a little bad, so sorry if I'm choppy. I would say I have an Apple right now because my roommate did all the grocery shopping for me this week, and my fridge is full of food, and I'm gonna make a wonderful dinner tonight for my brother. So I feel very lucky right now. Sweet Apple day.
Thanks for sharing that. Hopefully you're gonna have a really nice dinner. Anybody else? Going once? Okay. Okay, perfect. So I'll just go back to the slides. All right. So as I was mentioning, Technique Global is administering the grants. So we're giving out, dispersing the grants to youth. And so our mission, we've been around for 20 years, and our mission has been to enable young people to understand and act on the world's greatest challenges. And the vision is for youth everywhere to be actively engaged and connected, shaping a more inclusive, peaceful, and sustainable world. And so we've had projects, with young people within Canada, but also outside of Canada as well. We've had a lot of international projects, some in Eastern Africa, some in Central Asia, as well as like Central America as well, and South America. Yeah, so our work is global. That's hence the global, in the title. But we also have some work that we're doing locally as well, like with Rising Youth. So I'll pass this back to Cheryl.
Yeah, so with the community service grants, the Rising Youth program puts money in the hands of youth to make a difference in your community. It exists to support youth first and foremost, so you're not going to be left on your own. There is a team to support you from start to finish with creating your ideas and resourcing your projects. And lastly, we help to share your impact and amplify your stories, to encourage you to share your experiences and issues that are important through blogs, podcasts, and social media.
Thank you. I'll pass this back on to you again.
Yeah. So there are 3 levels of grants that are available, $250, $750, and $1,500 grants. $250 being for simple ideas like events and gatherings, $750 a bit bigger for community gardens or delivering care packages, and the $1,500 grants are larger scale projects with large groups of people that do require a budget and a community mentor. We have some examples later on in the presentation for the 750 and 1,500 grants that have been used in the past. But for the 250 grants, one example is a Ryerson student who did a cooking on a budget class via Zoom, and everyone who participated was rewarded with a $20 gift card, as well as a UBC student who helped students in residences by giving them grocery packs and also hosting a cooking and nutrition education workshop. So even with the 250, you can do a great project.
All right, thank you for sharing that example. Okay. So we find all types of projects. So if you have an idea, if you, for example, want to do something that has to do with skateboarding, for instance, don't be shy. You can still apply for that, do something fun with other youth in the community. If you want to work on something, around social justice, like for instance, Isabel brought up something that's happening in her community. If you, for example, want to do like a protest or something like that, you could still do that with the funds as well. Like for instance, last year we had a lot of people apply to, do some of the Black Lives Matter protests. Also like I don't know more as well, and there are also people who are involved in like the Pride festivals and things like that. So if you want to get involved in something that you feel passionate about, something that has to do with social justice, you could also do that. Or you could also do something traditional, like within the arts and culture, within food, and obviously a lot of you here are very passionate about food security in your communities. So if you want to do something to maybe address that, you could definitely do that as well. What we saw last year because of the pandemic, we saw a lot of food packages, like people like buying like groceries, for instance, for like family members who are vulnerable because maybe they lost their jobs or are maybe a tough place because of of the pandemic. Or maybe like having people meet over a meal to kind of address isolation in the community. So those are some examples that we also saw as well. And within health as well, like health is obviously one that was also pretty common to see last year because of COVID-19. So a lot of COVID-19 projects, some around education, others around like trying to provide masks and sanitizers to people who are vulnerable. Education as well. Housing and safety is another one. Environment, and also sports and recreation, right? So you could do projects with any of these groups. Obviously, when you're going on through our application, like on our website, like we'll ask you to kind of select one of these groups, right? So you just have to like find one that's kind of close to what you're doing. And if, for example, it falls within two of these groups, like for example, food and health, then just choose one. Yeah, so I would encourage all of you to just think about a project that you really want to make a difference in with Rising Youth, or something that you feel passionate about. And so now we're going to get into the grant requirements. Like you already know, all grants out there have specific requirements, the thing that you should and you shouldn't do when it comes to the specific grant. So with Rising Youth, what we do ask is that the project is led and created by a young person who's between 15 and 30 years old, and who's also a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or who has been granted refugee status in Canada. And so, if you are, for example, an international student, you're not going to be eligible to apply for these grants. But I would encourage you to work with somebody who is eligible to apply, for example, in a group, then have them, be the lead applicant, and you could support their project. But if you're a refugee with status, you can definitely apply. If you're a citizen, of course, you can apply in a PR as well. Sometimes organizations, want to help youth, with their projects, and they can't help them, but they shouldn't be the ones that kind of leading the project. We should see the young person taking the lead on the project. And also, like the project should be self-initiated and not done on behalf of or an organization other than a volunteer-led youth organization or club. So as I mentioned, like if you're going to do a project, you could do it in collaboration with an organization, but it can't be like something that the organization is asking you to do. It should be something that you want to do, that you're asking for support from the organization. So for instance, if you're trying to do maybe like a clothing drive in your community, and you're trying to work with Salvation Army because they already do that, and they already have a lot of resources and networks that they already tap into, then you could definitely do that. Like you could work with an existing organization that has the connections to be able to make a bigger impact in your project. But then Salvation Army won't be the ones taking the lead on the project. She will just be working with them. So that's what I mean by that. Or if some of you are involved, like some of you obviously are in school, and you might be part of a club at school, and you just want to do something, again, addressing food security, if that's what you care about, or some other issue in the community, you could still apply for these grants. So a student club can apply for these grants. If you're a volunteer-led organization, you can also apply for these grants as well. And then projects should be new and distinct. And so what we mean by that is, for example, if you applied last year, first of all, you can't apply again this year because we want to see different people applying this year. It's only a one-time grant, but sometimes we do open it up to second-time applications, but it hasn't happened yet right now. But if, for example, you had an idea and you applied, let's say, in 2 weeks, in August, let's say you applied in August, and you had another idea maybe during the holidays, in December, and you wanted to do something different, you wouldn't be able to apply, but you could still have somebody who's in your group or your team who's within the age group apply, and then you guys can work on a team project, right? But you wouldn't be the lead applicant for the second time. But then, of course, you can't have the same exact project idea. It needs to be distinct, right? And your project should also have a service-related aspect or volunteer aspect integrated. So what we mean by that is sometimes you've seen some youth, like purchase like iPads, for instance, for seniors during the pandemic last year. And that's great. Like they will purchase the iPads and send them to a senior's home, because they're trying to address the issue of isolation between seniors and their families. And obviously they're addressing a need in the community, but the thing is, like, they're not showing the service that they're doing for the community. So we want to see more, like, don't just sit behind your desk and order like stuff from Amazon and just send it over to an organization. We want to see, like, what are you actually doing in terms of service as well, because these grants are considered to be volunteer grants. And you can't pay yourself as a lead applicant from the funds directly. But you could pay somebody who's providing value for your project. So if someone is a graphic designer, or someone is speaking during your event, for instance, or a facilitator for your event, you could actually pay them funds. But as a lead applicant, you can't give yourself any funds. And so you could pay that person honorarium, right? Oh, sorry, we forgot this slide. Do you guys have any questions? I know that was a lot of content. Do you have any questions on this slide before we move forward? Okay, no questions. So I'll pass it on to Charlie.
Yeah, so a little bit more on requirements. As Christina said, it must be an initiative that will positively impact the community, done on volunteered time, as well as any equipment that is purchased with the grant must be given back to the community through donations or however. Ideally recruit ideally recruit and involve team members. It can be done solo, but it is a great experience to improve teamwork and collaboration skills, as well as conflict resolution skills, and ensure that the project is started and completed within 3 months or 90 days of the application being approved. And after the project is complete, within 30 days, submit a final report on the project that you've done, which includes receipts from all purchases and all of that. And of course, since we're still in the pandemic, it must adhere to public health guidelines that have been stated by the Government of Canada, including provincial and territorial and Indigenous governments. So just ensuring that the project is safe through the entirety.
All right. Yeah. Any questions on this slide?
I have a quick question. So before you mentioned, I think, iPads or any kind of equipment, I was just wondering what kind of service did they use it for when they applied, for the people that you were mentioning?
Yeah, so they actually, so I'll show that as an example of how they didn't actually do an actual service. It was more of like buying products and sending them out to, people who are vulnerable in the community, which is good, but it doesn't show the service. Like we want to see the youth do more. So maybe they could have, I don't know, maybe put together like an event for seniors in the home as well on top of that. Yeah, so that could have been an example. Yeah, so you can definitely buy equipment with the grant funds, but you just need to donate them to an organization upon completion, as Charlie mentioned. And so like for instance, if you do buy an iPad for a senior, of course you will need to take it back, right? So you just have to, have them keep it. So does that answer your question, or do you need something?
Yeah. So if you purchase a product or an equipment, then you would kind of have to donate it to the organization you're working with. But if it's for vulnerable people, then they keep it. Yeah,
like I would say if it's for a recipient, like you're buying it for a recipient, like for example, they will keep it. But if you're buying the actual like equipment, it doesn't have to be the organization that you're working with. It could be even like a volunteer club, like it could be like a student club that you're part of. Like for instance, you buy like I don't know, like a photography equipment or something like that, like a camera or a tripod. So you wouldn't just keep it, in your home. You would maybe, share that with the student club and have anyone, in the student club use it. So it doesn't have to be an organization per se, but like a group of people, so that the equipment is going to a group of people versus it's staying with one person. Because the idea is that this is supposed to be like community impact projects, right? So that's the purpose behind it.
Oh, got it. Makes sense. And then another quick question is, so when someone applies,
yeah,
under one person's name,
Yeah.
And for example, if let's say I apply, then it would all under my name. And then is it like that, or is it under a team's name?
But you
Like-
just be under your name, because we can only we only recognize one person. I mean,
Right.
even if you're a team, and so like if, for example, you're applying, then it would just be, Sarah on the application. And then we're gonna ask you how many team members are you working with, so you can mention how many people you're working with, but we won't ask for their names. And so, for instance, if somebody else from your group wants to apply in another 2 months and do a project with you as one of the team members, they could also do that as well.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Christina? So let's
Go ahead.
say somebody wanted to buy food boxes or gift cards for food or something.
Yeah.
If for that to count, would it have to be animated in some way, like having a cooking thing, or like not just send food to people, but would it have to be like animated in some respect?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay,
Actually,
okay.
like you can actually just buy groceries and just the service there would be you dropping it off at the person's
Oh,
home.
I see.
But with the iPad, it was different because they kind of just ordered iPads and then had them like, shipped by Canada Post. So
Oh, I see.
In
Okay,
terms of, like,
yeah.
showing the service, but if you're buying groceries, you are gonna go to the grocery store, you are gonna buy the product yourself. So like that takes time, right? And then you have to probably drop it off, or figure out how you're gonna get it to the families or the individuals, right? So that's already a service in itself. So you don't need to do like a cooking class or a demo or anything like that. That will be sufficient.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
Can I maybe ask a quick clarifying?
Oh, sorry. Go
question
ahead.
as well? Sorry. Just in terms of like, let's say, yeah, someone was buying food boxes or something, but they didn't really have the means of delivering or whatever,
Yeah.
but they did the planning and everything, and coordinated everything maybe behind their computer. Would that still count as a service, their coordination? Or
Yeah, I think it will still count as a service. It will, because how should I put it? Yeah, it will still count as a service. I think it's still okay. It's still okay. You just have to show like also like how you were able to connect the community members, right? Like, did you maybe, I don't know, do some sort of initial research as well to connect with these members or these individuals before you sent the food out, right? So maybe there's some sort of connection that you do show in your project description. That should still be sufficient, because I know obviously people are worried about COVID-19, like, obviously like leaving your house, going to like 10 different homes, obviously is putting you at a risk. And so I understand if you choose to do it a different way. So that still applies. That still applies. Okay, perfect. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, great. So now we're gonna go to what you cannot do. Like most grant requirements, there's always the list of things you can't do. But luckily for Resin Youth, it's not that many things. So first, like you can't actually have the grant. You can't do like a fundraiser with the grant funds or generate profit, for instance. Sometimes we have youth who wanna, build like businesses or social enterprise and things like that. But you can't take the grant funds and do that. You have to actually put all the money into the community impact work that you're doing. But you could still access other funds out there. Like if, for instance, just as an example, like maybe there's a grant that Mill Exchange is giving out. You can actually, also access that grant on top of Resin Youth, but you probably but you will have to show how you've used the Resin Youth grant funds that you got, and of course the Mill Exchange grants that you got as well. And then you have to obviously write 2 different reports. But you can still access additional funds to do other things, but the funds you get from Resin Youth, you can generate profit from them. And also you can charge an entrance fee if you're having like a virtual event or an in-person event, if you choose to do that. We just want to make sure that events or engagements that you have are open to everyone and anyone, so that people don't feel like they have to have money to come to your event. So we want to make sure that they're accessible to people from different walks of life. So you can charge that. And yeah, you can definitely pay an honorarium. So you can use the funds to pay an honorarium to, for example, if you have volunteers on your team, like the actual volunteer team within the project cannot get paid, but you can pay like, somebody who's a facilitator or a graphic designer within the group as well. Yeah, but you can't pay a family member. So like this is something to be worried about, or again, for volunteer members as well. But exceptions are made for indigenous communities and small communities, because sometimes in remote communities there's obviously different challenges. So like we do understand that those communities have very specific challenges. So it means like, there's some exceptions made for that. And for indigenous communities, it could be like an elder, for instance, coming in to speak for the first, few minutes to do like a rite or something like that, then you would actually also pay them as well. And there's also like in terms of how you spend the funds, you can't choose more than half of the funds or the grant funds on an honorarium. So for instance, if you're accessing $1,500, you can only use up to $750 to give out as an honorarium, and you can't give more than $450 per person. So just be aware of that. Or of course, if you're buying gift cards for people attend your event, you can't use more than $750 for 1,500 grants. Or even like you could buy like prizes or giveaways as well. So the rest of the money will go to showing like some sort of service, as I was mentioning earlier. And of course, these grants have been funded by the Liberal government, but it is still non-partisan. So and obviously some of you might be involved in some work regarding the upcoming elections, like maybe you want to engage more youth in terms of like who to elect or how to elect, or some sort of civic engagement in your community. And that's still okay. You can still do all that, but you can't be affiliating the grants with any political party. That's just how it is. And I would also urge you to not use your own money to cover any purchases before you get approved for the project that you're applying for. Because anything could happen, and it could take a while for us to approve you, or maybe they could approve you for less than what you applied for. I mean, we're hoping it's not going to happen, but anything can happen at any time. So don't use your own funds and then pay yourself back with the grant funds later. Just wait until you get approved and get the money into your bank account. We usually send like an e-transfer or a direct deposit into your account as you please. And of course, if there's any funds that remain that are over $10, you will have to like send it back to us. So just be aware of that. So I urge you to use all the funds. If you get the money, just use all the funds. Does anybody have any questions regarding this list of what you cannot do?
I have a question about one of the first points that I've just thought of, which is about not being on behalf of an organization.
Yeah.
So we're like a student club, but we're trying to make a cooperative, which is going to be like a cooperative, registered with the government. And I'm wondering if we end up getting to that sooner, if we would then still be able to apply for this funding, or if then at that point we'd be kind of like an organization, like a business. I don't know if that question makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. So as long as you're not incorporated, as long as you're not like a cooperative yet, you're still eligible to apply. So like if, for example, you're going to be a cooperative in a month, you're still eligible to apply until the day you become a cooperative. But once you are a cooperative, it may be difficult because obviously there's some things that change because you're not a nonprofit and you're not, like your work, the way you work is different, right? So you wouldn't be able to apply after that. But you can still apply right now before you become, that.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I actually have a question. So it's not really a question, but it's just to get some clarification. So we can use, if we do get approved with the funding, we can use some of that funding for honorariums, but you can't use more than $450, for example, if you have like a $1,500 grant. Is that right?
Yes, you can choose more than $450 per person, right? But okay, the maximum for honorarium for the 1,500 grant is $750. So you could actually just give like, maybe 2 different people, like, I don't know, $350, for instance, or you could give $100 to 7 people, right? So that's what I mean by that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Max you can give to one person is $450.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Because sometimes even like, with some work that people do, like they, like for example, graphic design, obviously like $450 is not enough if somebody has spent like 4 hours on doing some work for you. So like that's just showing like your appreciation, but it's not the rate that you would pay them in the market, right? Like that would be lower than the actual rate. So then it would be considered an honorarium and not a professional service. Okay. So I'll pass this back to Shirley.
Yeah, so now we have more of a collaborative exercise for you on identifying community and issues. So in terms of defining community, I think every project and every person defines it a little bit differently, depending on what your interests are and what your project is about. So we're asking, which community would you want to help? And what issues have made you feel discomfort or made you want to make a difference? And who do you think needs help? And where do you think this community needs your help with this specific issue? So I'll put a Jamboard link in the chat that everyone can use to write down any ideas that come to mind. And then maybe afterwards, if people feel brave enough to share with everyone, that would be fantastic.
Yes, if you want to share some of this, if you want to respond to some of these questions in the chat, please feel free. Or you can just use the Jamboard, actually. You can just put them in the Jamboard, the link that Charlie shared. That would also be great as well. And let me know if you can't access the Jamboard link or the Jamboard page. As you see, okay, sounds good. What does your project look like? We've kind of gone through Azra and Hannah's project, and obviously they've thought through the planning aspects and the implementation of the project. And as I mentioned, it has to be completed within 3 months. But if your idea, for example, is something long-term that might take a year or 2 years, you could still apply for the resident projects as long as you're able to show within 3 months some sort of impact that you can report on within your report. We'll share the template with you shortly. And yeah, something to think about is who would you need to contact before you start planning and implementing your project. So if you're thinking of working in a community that you're not a part of, for instance, we urge you to think about connecting with somebody from the community before you do that, so you can address actual needs that the community has. So similar to that, to what I just mentioned as well. Yeah, and then maybe Charlie, you could take this slide.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the ideas planning kind of went through some of these, but again, when looking at your projects, asking yourself how many people will be helping you and what roles are they playing, and how many people in the community will you be serving? Again, these will be questions on the actual application, but it's just an estimate, which is great. And how much money do you need to implement your project, looking at materials, supplies, physical resources. So everything to do with the project, but also leading up to it and what you need for planning. If you need more access to project resources, you can visit the Rising Youth Grantee Hub, where it shows other youth and their stories and what they are currently planning for projects.
Yeah, so once you apply for our grants, you can access the Grantee Hub, like Charlie mentioned. You can see what other youth are also doing on the go. Yeah, or there was actually. Yeah, so you can access that. And if once you're done with your project, you can become an alumni, and you have an alumni hub as well. So we have hubs for, for everything. We have the Grantee Hub, we have the alumni hub, and we have the partner hub. Yeah, and then we also have the self-reflection guide, which is a 5-minute video that we won't be able to play today because of time, but I will share this in the chat so you guys can watch it at your own time. Okay, I hope it doesn't play. Okay, there we go. I'll put this in the chat and you can just watch it at your own time, but it's just like a 5-minute video that gives you, an idea of reflecting on how you work with communities that you're not a part of, and also thinking about how you can actually come up with actual needs, or sorry, how you can actually figure out what the actual needs for the community are before you go in, so you're not doing something that's not meaningful or doesn't actually have an impact where you live, right? So things to just think about, and this video kind of gives you a synopsis of that. And sometimes we're thinking about that when you're engaging with communities who are sometimes at risk or marginalized. So for instance, if you're trying to engage the indigenous community and you're not indigenous yourself, then I would urge you to connect with the community first before you do a project for them or with them, right? Like do it with them. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And then I'll pass this back to Charlie.
Yeah. So the applications for the Rising Youth grants have been opened since April 19th and will be accepted on a rolling basis until October 31st of this year. After November 1st, there's any further applications received might receive reduced funding depending on the grant funds that are left over. So yeah, keep applying, and hopefully there will be some left over, but not guaranteed. And applications are reviewed really quickly by the team, and you might hear back within 8 to 10 days of applying. So make sure to check your email, as that is their primary method of communication in case they have additional questions about your application. So check your junk folder and spam just in case. I'll pass it back to Christina.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, like after November 1st, we might give less funding, particularly in Ontario, because we have a lot of applicants in Ontario and the funds are running out. So if you're from Ontario, I would urge you to apply before October 31st. If you're from other provinces, the funds may be there, but I cannot guarantee that they will, you'll still get the full funding that you apply for. So again, apply soon so you can get the full funding if you're gonna go for 1,500. Yeah, and check your email as Charlie mentioned. So we're going to walk you guys through the actual grant application. Do you want to share your screen, Charlie, or do you want me to just share mine and I can go through it? I mean, so you can go through it, but I can share mine, or how do you want to do it? What's your preference?
Oh, I can share mine, sure. Hang on one second.
I'll just stop sharing then.
Can you see that?
If you click on the image, it should take you to that. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, there we go.
The screen, or sorry?
Yeah, it's a right screen. So just scroll down until you see what the 3 grant application options are. Right there, yeah. The apply button.
On just any of them?
Any of them. They're pretty much the same.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So just so you know, everyone, like these like all this in step 1, this is everything that we went through for the requirements. We're not going to go through everything again right now because it's everything that we've kind of covered before. And so just make sure you when you put a check mark on any of these options here, you just read through it and make sure you know where you're putting a check mark on. And you're going to sign a contract, right, with Rising Youth once you do get the grant funds. And so it's just a way for you to be aware of what you're signing before you sign it. Yeah. So you have to actually click on everything and then click continue before it lets you go to the next page.
Sure. All right, and then just basic about you information. Of course, everything that start is required. You can enter your preferred communication times of morning, afternoon, evening, and preferred communication method.
Sorry, so for the preferred communication method, you can use it. Like it can be a text, for instance, or it could be like a phone call or an email. So sometimes youth don't want to be called for different reasons. Maybe they're working, all right? So then you can choose how you prefer to be contacted and then what time of the day as well. So that's something that we added this year to kind of like, be more accommodating to different people working in different times. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. Anything else specifically you wanted me to?
Yeah, within the, what it says identify any of the underrepresented groups. So if you identify within any of these groups, I would urge you to select one or more of these groups. As you can see, it's not mandatory, right? But it just helps us know who we're reaching out to and whether we're reaching out to youth who are underrepresented. Okay, I can share that in the chat, Hannah. So please do apply on this link so we can know that you came or you knew about Rising Youth from Mill Exchange. There you go. Yeah, and then when it comes to what topic, so about your project on step 3, as I mentioned, like we kind of, these are all the 7 groups that the government kind of groups all the projects. So you can select any of these options here, and it can only let you select one, right? So if it maybe it's kind of affiliated with the environment, but also with food and health, you may just have to select one of those. And then when it comes to who do you want to help, you can help like you can help all these communities, or you can help one of these communities. So it lets you like select more than one option here. So it's up to you if you are doing that. But if you're not helping any of these communities, you don't have to select that, right? As you can see, it's non-mandatory, it's just an option. And again, it's mostly for government stats. And then of course, we also ask you about SDGs, because we do actually track our UN SDGs in terms of how youth are doing their projects. And we want to see like which SDGs are youth most likely to do their projects in. And we saw like a lot of youth. I'm doing a lot of work with sustainable cities and communities, good health and well-being. Those are really common to see. Yeah, even like climate justice is pretty common to see as well. Zero hunger. So like it also helps us track and also be contributing to the SDGs in our small little world of taking it global, but also with the youth projects that are happening across the country, we're also able to do that as well. So if you select that, that will really help us know how you're looking at your impact of your project. And then when it comes to description of your project, when you're describing your project, just think about the 5 W's and the H, like who, what, when, why, and how. And if you can answer those questions, you can answer that. So we don't want you to have like 10 paragraphs of like project description. Just keep it short and sweet. Get to the point. A paragraph is sufficient, right? As long as you answer those questions that we're asking. What's your initiative? How will you address a community issue, and how will the grant funds help you? So again, we don't want we're not asking for too much information. So if you can really get through this grant application in like half an hour, if you already have your idea, I'm ready. And then how many people are you going to help is what Charlie was mentioning before. Yeah, so we just want to know an estimate of how many people you're going to help. Of course, when it comes to implementation, things do change, and you might maybe aim to help 100 people, but only 50 people show up to your event, right? Or even 5 people show up to your event instead. So that's still okay. We just want to know an estimate of how many people you anticipate you're going to help. And as you can see, we don't ask for team members' names, right? We just ask for how many people are going to be in your team, right? So again, back to Sarah's question, you don't have to have the names of who's going to be in your team. The only person who we're going to track their name is the lead applicant, and they're going to be responsible for reporting back to us. We're going to obviously be in communication with that person specifically. So like if you're a volunteer team member within a group, we would obviously contact you, right? We'll obviously contact the person that will have their name in our system. Yeah. And so where will your project take place? If you're doing it, if you're doing your project like indoors, you would definitely talk about that. But this is mostly relevant because of COVID-19. So if somebody decides to do a project outside or outdoors, then how would you keep in line with the public health guidelines there as well? Did you want to add anything here, Charlie?
No, that looks great. Yeah, it's really easy to understand.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning, if you want to collaborate with a partner organization, you can also do that as well. If, for example, you want to work with Meal Exchange on a project, you can just add their name here. But again, it's a collaboration and you're taking the lead, right? So yeah, and then when it comes to the budget, maybe I can share my screen now because I want to show you how to do the budget. All right, just give me 1 second. Okay, we have 15 minutes. Okay, I'll try and go through this quickly so we can save the time. Okay. Yeah, so this is the budget template that we have on Excel, but you can still use to just fill in your costs on the actual application. But I would encourage you to use this because it just helps you know how much money you're using. And so going through these different requirements that we also walked through before. And so if you apply for $1,500, it will show up automatically as green as 1,500, right? And then everything that you insert in here will show up at the bottom. Like let's say you're paying for a space for $400, or you're buying food for, I don't know, $500 or something, right? You will just put it there and kind of explain I don't know, purchasing food for 20 people at $25. A food item, I don't know, something like that, right? So just give a one sentence description of how you're gonna spend the funds, right? And then when you're adding that cost, it's all showing up here in your total requests. And for example, if you want to purchase equipment, for instance, I don't know, for $200 and pay honorarium for like $600. So if you do that and it's over 1,500, it's going to show you, it's going to be red here because it means that you're not, you're obviously over budget. But if you change this to 400, then it's going to be green, which shows that you're, staying within budget. So for instance, like in Hannah's case, where she wanted to have like, maybe talk about like other funds that she's getting from other places, like, with the food grant that she has. Let's say she has like $250. When you put that in there, then it does deduct because we just want to be like, it wants to be an addition to what you already have. So like $1,250, right? So if you're doing the same exact project and you're trying to use funds from Rising Youth, you will need to show that where you're getting other sources from. But if it's not for the same exact project, you don't have to do that, right? So that's how you will do the budget. So in a snapshot, do you guys have any questions? So I know I went through that really quickly, but most of this stuff we already kind of covered in the requirements. Okay, perfect. Then I will stop sharing my screen and I'll go back to the slides. Okay, here we go. All right, so here are the slides then. All right, so I'll just pass it back to Charlie.
Yeah, so if you're not sure where to start, or maybe you have a hint of an idea, but not sure where to go for it, there is the Rising Youth Take Action Guide, which provides a step-by-step guide to help you develop your ideas into projects of your own. I don't have the link here, but did you have it handy, Christina? Or
Yeah, I do actually. Oops, I'm sorry.
perfect.
Oops, there we go. If you click on the image, it will take you there. So I'll just
Oh,
put it in the
that's
chat.
right. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. It's all good. Yeah, thank you. Oops, and I'm not sure if I was supposed to take this slide or it was you. Shirley, I forgot.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. And further opportunities that you will have access to during and after the Rising Youth Project are the Alumni Hub that I think Christina mentioned earlier on, that connects you with youth across the country, as well as you can be featured on Rising Youth podcast episodes, or even have your project highlighted on media through radio, TV, or news channels with the help of their communications team. Or you could write a blog post to be shared through social media, which can then be amplified by the Rising Youth social media platforms. And finally, you can plan other events through the other Rising Youth Centered events with other people, which can be funded by the team.
Yeah, and if you wanna, check out our Instagram, see what youth are doing, you can click on our Rising Youth TIG on our Instagram, and you'll find us and see we're always posting about like the cool stuff youth are doing. Then we have this video that it's pretty long, so I won't really share, we won't watch it right now, but I'll share in the chat. And I can also share these links as well after the call, so you guys can have these links. I can share them with Brittany, and then she'll share them with all of you. So you don't have to, if you forget to like save them, that's okay. I'll just share them with Brittany. All right, so we'll get into the project examples. I want to show you guys these examples before we leave the call, because this is really important for you guys to see what other youth are doing. Yeah, so Charlie, maybe I can see your slide here.
Okay. Yeah, so the first example for a $1,500 grant was David and a team of over 100 volunteers donated care packages to 5 youth homeless centered shelters, in Ottawa, GTA, and Waterloo. And I'll just go over them briefly to save time. But and then Isabel with another $1,500 grant coordinated efforts with a small circle of her connections to assemble and deliver backpacks and baskets and essential items benefiting women and children who have fled situations of violence. So just to show that the projects can be for very specific communities with very specific needs.
As you can see, you could also like most projects here have like an impact of what they, how the project impacted the women, for instance, and the children. So that's something that we asked for in the report, like 1 or 2 sentences kind of showing like how the people that you were trying to serve were impacted as well. So that's what we have like at the bottom here. Sorry, Charlie, for interruption.
That's okay. And the next example is Vicky, who purchased and distributed resources to the homeless community at Sanctuary. Another $1,500 grant impacting 70 to 100 people. And another $1,500 grant, Brandon worked with a team to create spotlight videos to raise awareness around the topic of food insecurity in Scarborough, with a group of people who storyboarded, filmed, edited, and distributed the videos. And Jillian engaged locals in the community to find out which families across the island needed the most assistance, and from that delivered 50 boxes of food to those having financial struggles. And then a $750 grant where Catherine connected with the CEO of Share, a local organization that offers food distribution, clothing donations, and community programs to distribute learning kits for children and youth. And the last $750 grant with camp boxes, Cindy, along with an executive team of 5 others, planned and executed an online educational camp for grades 4 to 6 within the Saskatoon Public Schools division, split up into art, life sciences, and physics technology camp.
Yeah, and I'll pass this back to Brittany.
Awesome, thank you. Basically, I just wanted to say that we have regular calls like these every month or two. So follow along on our newsletter, and you can see if you follow mealexchange.com/events, you'll see any upcoming events like these. And you can also follow along on our social media. And you can find recordings of past workshops that we've done that are similar but different in content on our website. And we have the National Student Food Summit that we're going to be announcing more details about really soon. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. That will be an opportunity to meet with a bunch of other students from across the country online this fall. Mostly probably will be focused on food policy for food insecurity, or addressing food insecurity at post-secondary campuses across the country. And then we'll also have a in-person summit, hopefully next spring, if COVID conditions allow. But keep up to date on what kind of things we've got going on. And it's so lovely to see you all here. And I would say that if you ever have ideas of other types of workshops and stuff that we should run, we're always interested in hearing what you think and can develop workshops and partner with amazing folks like Rising Youth to put on workshops for you.
Yeah, and someone did ask about my email. I just put it in the chat. And I am going to share these slides with Brittany. So, you can always ask them, but I also believe there's a recording, right? If I'm not mistaken, which will be distributed to all the participants. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and Melody, actually, do you want to drop your email in the chat there for Christina? Because if you send the stuff to Melody, she's going to actually send out automatically to everyone afterwards.
Yeah, so I can share some of this. I won't share all the slides because, for example, like the ones that have youth names and things like that, I probably won't share those examples.
Yes, yeah.
But I will pick a few of those like key ones that you guys need information on, and I'll pass those to Melody, and then when she shares the recording, she'll also share those as well.
Awesome, yeah. So then everyone also who registered for the event but couldn't make it will also get all of those and those materials.
Yeah, for sure. I actually forgot to mention one thing on the actual application. Oops, Just 1 second. I'll go back to. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, I forgot to mention like section 5 here. Like, don't forget to put a community reference down, and that's someone that you trust to be able to support you in your project. So that could be Brittany or somebody else that you know within Mill Exchange. So just their name, their email, their phone number, and the relationship you have with them. And we kind of get in contact with that person to see how they know you as well. They'll probably like provide like a 1-page, like we have a few questions for them that we just ask. And then lastly, don't remove this part here that says Mill Exchange. We just want to know that you learned about revenue from Mill Exchange. And then a couple of questions here around volunteering and things like that, which is just government stats. Government also collects stats. And then when it comes to this section here about confirming your identity, you don't have to upload a photo, but I would urge you to upload a photo. But if you don't feel comfortable, because let's say you're a youth who's going through transition, for instance, or you without status and you don't have your card or things like that, you don't have to. You can skip this question. But if you are able to, I would encourage you to just upload your photo. It just makes it easier for our team. And if you can't upload your photo, we will contact you by phone or by like through a video call to just ensure that you are who you say you are. So we obviously are giving the grant funds to somebody who's within the age group, right? Because sometimes you have people who are over like 30 applying, and so we want to make sure that we are giving the grants to the people that are within that demographic and that group as well. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Does anybody have any questions or yeah, let us know. If you have any questions or anything you want to say before we wrap up in 2 minutes.
Now's the time if you have anything. Asra.
So I was just wondering, can you apply for more than one project, or is it just one project per applicant?
You're gonna apply for only one project, like as a lead applicant, but you can work on several projects in a group, right?
Okay.
So like, your name can only appear once within the application, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any other questions? Thank you so much, Shirley, for doing this with me.
We have a question from Vivian in the chat. From the previous projects that created care packages for local organizations, I was a little confused about what is acceptable, because an earlier slide mentioned we are not allowed to create a project on behalf of an organization.
Yeah, so you can do it on behalf of an organization, but you can collaborate with an organization. So for instance, if you want to work with Mill Exchange, because obviously sometimes as youth, you may not have those connections or those resources that organizations already have because they've been long-standing and they've been around for a while. You could collaborate with an organization, but you can't have them dictate the idea that you're going to do. You want to see that come from you. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so we can help you do whatever it is that you're deciding to do, but I'm not allowed to tell you what to apply for. But I can talk to you about your idea if you want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course you can always ask any questions you have also to Brittany. I mean, she did help other youth last year as well, so she understands the grants really well. So feel free to reach out to Brittany at any time. And myself as well. I have my email there, but yeah.
We've got one question here. So if Vivian is hoping to run a food drive for a local nonprofit, would that be acceptable?
A food bank for a local nonprofit?
A food drive.
A food drive? Yeah, as long as you're showing that it's a project, right? And as long as you're showing that it's not like an ongoing program at the organization, I think it will be okay. Yeah.
But
you can put it as collaborating with that organization. I think that's how you might want to like word it.
I might also say that you might want to think about not just for a local nonprofit, but like for the student-run campus food bank, maybe would be even more applicable.
Yeah.
Which often struggle to get enough anyways to service their members. Like they don't get the same amount of donations probably as a local big organization might.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, because those other organizations probably already have funding and connection and things like that. So
yeah, with connections with like Second Harvest and these other big organizations that donate food, but often campus food banks struggle to do that. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else? Okay, so if you apply for multiple projects, would the whose bank account would the grant go to? Sorry, it will go to you as a lead applicant. So we will ask you, like, you prefer to get an e-transfer? Do you want to get a check? So as I was mentioning before, like, you could be working in a group, but whoever's name is on the application is the person that we will be contacting on a regular basis in terms of like questions about the project and paying them and things like that. And they're also responsible for the reporting as well. Yeah, so you can just, like, you know, have it send us an EMT. Yeah. Go ahead if you have any questions. Just unmute yourself and just ask away.
So I don't know if you already talked about it and I had just like stepped out for a second, but the reporting process afterwards, is it like a couple page write-up or like what is expected for the reporting? You totally probably covered it and I'm just not.
No, actually I didn't actually show it this time around. I usually show it, but not this time around. So you didn't miss anything. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so the report is very straightforward. You know, if you have a few minutes and you want to, like, you know, hang around, feel free. I'm just gonna pull it up.
Also, Brittany expects to be contacted because I just submitted the application.
We just did?
I already got the reference check email during the meeting.
Yeah.
Hannah is on top of it.
That's amazing.
Sorry.
I love that.
No, this is great. I'm going on vacation on Friday, so you got it in right on time.
That's why I did it. That's why I did it.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You just do it like right away.
Amazing. Amazing.
I love that. So as you can see, everyone, like, you can submit the your application literally in 20 minutes. Like, it is so fast. And this is a report that we have. It's so easy. Like, it can take you like half an hour at the most. What I would say is keep track of your receipts. Take photos of your receipts on the go because you don't want to lose them. Because sometimes they, you know, they get erased or you lose them because, you know, it's a lot of paper. So just take photos of your receipts every time. And all we're asking for is, like, again, your email, your name, your province, territory, all personal information. And then we ask you to describe what happened in your project, what impacts you're able to achieve, again, in a few sentences, and what's the biggest success in your project? What are you most proud of? And then we just ask, you know, questions where you can agree or disagree. Again, very straightforward questions. Any lessons you've learned from your project? When was it completed? We ask you to upload photos or videos of your project, but this is not a requirement. It's only if you have them, so don't feel like you have to do that. With the receipts, though, it is a requirement, so please keep track of your receipts. And then was all the money spent on completing your project? If it wasn't, we're going to ask you to return some of the funds. So just use all the money. Did you purchase any equipment over $50 during the course of the project? Again, you just want to know whether you're going to donate it afterwards. And then if you have any social media posts that you created, or, you know, photos or flyers, you can just upload them there as well. And then we ask you what kind of skills you developed during your project, how many people you impacted, how many hours you did in terms of volunteering, or how much time you spent on your project. And then we want to send you a certificate of appreciation, which is signed by Trudeau. So it's signed by the Prime Minister. So if you're a lead applicant, you will receive this. And if you're not, you wouldn't. So that's the challenge there. We're trying to see how we can actually address that issue where if someone is working in a group, like, all the group members receive the same certificate. But right now it's only the lead applicant who will receive that. So you can frame it if you want. Then did someone help you complete your report? You can always say yes if there's a team member who did, because sometimes we have a lot of other team members who are not, who will, like, support you as well. So as you can see, it's straightforward. Like, these are all the questions. Pretty easy breezy. Does that answer your question, Hannah?
Yeah, that's perfect. I was worried I had more of like the researcher brain in mind, that I had to like do like a huge like document of things, like pages and pages. So that's a lot better to see. Thank you. Thank you so much for walking us through it as well. And thank you so much for your presentation tonight. Honestly, learned so much. I'm so thankful for coming. I'm really excited to work further with your organization as well. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'm glad that you can actually get more money to continue having a bigger impact on your project. And I'm glad that you had the other funds, but then you can access more, right? So
I am so impressed that you managed to pay attention and also submit an application. Very impressed, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you. I try.
Anybody else want to submit the application right now? I'm kidding. Anybody else, you know, have any questions or any comments that you want to, you know, mention? Just ask away. And I will share that report template with Melodia as well. So you're welcome. You're welcome. And also thank you so much, Shirley, for doing this with me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie, for helping us out tonight. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Thank you everyone for coming here and staying the extra 7 minutes.
Hope you all have a lovely evening. Feel free if you want to put my contact in for the community reference, but also if you're working on someone in your particular community that makes more sense, do that. I'm also going on vacation on Friday, so you'll get an autoresponder if you email me with like other folks to contact. You can contact someone else in Meal Exchange if you need other supports, like our executive director, Suman, and his contact's on the website. I just don't want to hold anyone up because I won't be responding to my emails after Friday for a couple of weeks. So
yeah, so if you feel free to drop out of the call if you have no more questions. There's no pressure to stay. No pressure.
have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Isa, did you have any questions? Okay. Is there anything